Hey there everyone, welcome back to Utility Sports. Super stoked for this video as the NBA offseason is now upon us for half of the NBA, and as the playoffs kind of ramp up and teams get eliminated, more and more teams will be joining in this offseason discussion, which I'm super excited about again in this video. This one we're starting with the Houston Rockets in their offseason preview for 2024. If you are new to Utility Sports, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content so you don't miss out on future uploads, because we're going to be covering all 30 NBA teams with offseason previews this offseason. So I'm super excited. Of course, I had to start with the Houston Rockets. You know I love my Rockets fans that watch this channel. Texas Sports, I'm thinking of you specifically, one of our great moderators in our Discord. Make sure you join that. Links in the description as well. And let's jump into it here with our video preview. We're going to start with a 2023-2024 season recap, break down some of the things that I saw, that I analyzed from this team this past season. Then we're going to get to the NBA draft. We're not only going to look at their lottery odds, we're also going to evaluate draft prospects that make sense for Houston, depending on where their pick ends up lying in this year's draft. NBA free agency situation. They have a chance to work their way to some cap space if they want it. We'll talk about some potential targets for them and how they get to that cap space. And then we'll give my early outlook for next season. Remember, right now it's April 15th, the day I'm recording this. So it's not necessarily a surefire, oh yeah, this is going to be exactly how their season pans out. There's a lot that can change between now and June, whether that's the trade market, free agency, the draft. A lot of stuff shifts between the next couple of months from now. So it's just an early outlook. So I hope you guys are excited for that. And let's jump into that season recap. What did I see from this team this past year? First of all, Ime Udoka. I loved the hire of Ime Udoka when the Houston Rockets got him, because he picked up all of the low-hanging fruit that this team just flat out needed to be way better at. Some of those things were transition defense. They went from one of the worst transition defenses to one of the best this year. In previous years, I called them a YMCA defense, kind of making fun of Steven Silas and the way that their defense was operated. It just wasn't very good. The Rockets were much better this year, and I think Ime Udoka not only instilled kind of a sense of, hey, we have to defend, we have to be a better defensive team, but they also made roster moves to help that, and they had a good defensive scheme with some ball pressure. They were able to bring help. Everything just kind of funnels together when you're coached by Ime Udoka. I think he's one of the smarter defensive coaches in the NBA. I've been saying that for some time now, and it's no surprise to me that the Rockets were significantly better on that end of the floor. I also love that Udoka got into it with some players this year. Wasn't really expecting that coming into the season, but he's got that chip on his shoulder, just like those veterans do. Dylan Brooks, of course, has an edge to him. Fred VanVleet does to a certain degree as well, and I think both of them were positive additions for this team. You think about the jump that they made from where they were a year ago, a 22-win team, I believe, to winning 40-plus games this year, looking like a team that's just significantly improved. And I think the veteran presence was important for that. Not only, again, bringing that intensity, establishing a tone on the defensive end of the floor, but also being able to settle down the offense. VanVleet at times had some really high assist numbers games this year. Now, I don't think his playmaking, I don't think he has quite the playmaking gravity that others do who also racked up assists. I think a lot of his assists kind of come in the flow of an offense, but that's not a bad thing. And I think compared to where they were at 2 years ago with Kevin Porter Jr. running point guard, yes, I know that's crazy that was an actual thing that was happening there in Houston. They actually had a real point guard this year, and they really, I think, reaped the benefits of that. The team was significantly better, and behind all of that was Alperen Şengün stepping up to be the best player on the team. He was just phenomenal for the Rockets this season. One of the best post-up scorers in the league, one of the best post passers in the league. I think all of the skills that we saw from him pre-draft really have started to emerge and really cement themselves in his NBA game. And I still think the Rockets have some things to do to figure out exactly how they want Şengün to work and operate. How often does he spend time at the top of the key? How often is he down in the low post? How often is he in the mid post? They've got some things still to figure out with their offensive spacing. I think that's why this team still has a lot of upward mobility in the next couple of years, because I think there are a lot of other areas that Ime Udoka over time is going to figure out and get good solutions to, that's going to help this team advance further and further each and every season. So I'm still believing that Şengün is going to be a key long-term building block for them. And then Jalen Green kind of found himself, maybe. I'm a little a little hesitant. I've been higher on Jalen Green than most over the last couple of years, even though I didn't love him a ton pre-draft because a lot of the reasons that we've seen, his inefficiency, the lack of consistency, that's a sign of skill. Players who are super consistent, you think about LeBron James and the 1,000-something games that he scored over 10 points in, like consecutively, that's a symbol of greatness, because no matter what defense you're faced, no matter what guy is guarding you, if you're good enough, you're going to put up the numbers, you're going to be successful and productive. Jalen Green just hasn't been that through his career so far, but I think this year was a step forward for him, especially the second half of the season. I think he really found himself. Remember, this is his first time playing for a genuine NBA level head coach with kind of a changing role around him. The last couple of years, he was allowed to do whatever he wanted, had a ton of freedom on offense. And when you have freedom like that, it does allow you to play loose and carefree, which isn't good for the Rockets winning a bunch of games, but it was good for Jalen Green feeling confident. This year, things shifted. The ball was in Fred VanVleet's hands more, in Alperen Şengün's hands more, and Jalen Green had to kind of adjust to taking a back seat. Because of that, I think he struggled at the beginning of the year. Then Şengün goes out, and then all of a sudden Jalen Green's racking up these 30, 40-point games. It's because he was feeling that confidence, having the ball in his hands more, being trusted, and I think the Rockets are going to be able to use that, leverage that into making the two of them work together. Now, there's still a lot of room to grow there. I think that they're going to have to figure out ways to maximize Şengün and Green together, but the skill sets with Green's downhill athleticism and Şengün's ability to short roll, hit floaters, do a bunch of different things in the 10 to 15 foot area of the floor, those two guys are going to grow into being a good fit together. They just have to get the reps, they have to get the practice together to really build up that chemistry, and I think that's something that over the next couple of years we're going to see them grow and blossom together. They're both still extremely young prospects, and remember, in the tough Western Conference, they just had a really good year. I think the most wins ever for an 11 seed in NBA history. So an impressive season for them nonetheless, even though it didn't come with playoff basketball. Jabari Smith, I think, took a big step forward this year. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see much Tari Eason, though. Those two guys I still think are key long-term pieces for Houston. Tari Eason brings some offensive rebounding grit, which we're going to talk about here in a second as well. And then Jabari, I think just what you exactly wanted to see from him. 3-and-D forward who can guard across multiple positions, block shots. He makes some outstanding defensive plays. And then offensively, I think just the shooting is taking a step forward. We still have to see him in order to justify his draft positioning. I still think we have to see a little bit more from him, but I think it was a big step forward for him nonetheless, and I think the more structure, the better for Jabari Smith. I think he's going to thrive off of the playmaking of others as the other players on his team continue to grow around him. When Jalen Green continues to get better, when Alperen Şengün develops and grows still as a playmaker and a post scorer, I think that's going to open up more spacing for Jabari, and I think he's going to reap some of the benefits of the others around him continuing to develop and blossom into even better players. Then let's talk about the rookies, specifically Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore. I still cannot believe that Cam Whitmore fell to number 20 in the draft. I just could not understand it. I was bewildered by that, and it was clearly a mistake. Pre-draft, I compared him to Jaylen Brown, and if you compare their rookie season numbers, well, they're pretty darn similar. Now, big difference, Cam Whitmore asserted himself a lot more as a scorer in his rookie campaign than Jaylen Brown did. That's not surprising to me if you look back at the way that Whitmore played at Villanova. But the two of them, very, very similar from an efficiency standpoint, even on their free throws, their rebounding numbers, their assist numbers. Overall, they had very comparable rookie seasons, so I feel spot on with my comparison pre-draft to Jaylen Brown, and I think as we've seen Brown really emerge and develop as a scorer to what he is now as a mid-20s point per game guy, I think Cam Whitmore's got that same potential, that same ceiling to hit as someone who's going to flirt with all NBA teams. And then Amen Thompson, a player who I loved pre-draft. I had him ranked third on my pre-draft board, right next to Scoot Henderson. I nearly had Amen Thompson second because I'm a huge believer in this kid's game. I had him with the second highest potential in the class, only behind Wembanyama, who had an awesome rookie season for San Antonio. But Amen Thompson is going to become a triple-double machine. I think game 82 was a great example of what's to come for Amen Thompson as he kind of filled up the stat sheet yet again. He was one of the highest volume rebounders across the entire NBA, not just for rookies, not just for guards. He's doing it across everybody. When he's in the starting lineup, he's a high rebound, high productivity type of player. And I think even if the jump shot never comes around, he's going to be a very good NBA player. And if the jump shot comes around, Houston, you have the face of your franchise. You have a mega superstar. If he turns into a 30-something% three-point shooter, that's a long ways from now. He's not going to get there by next season, but he's coming. And if he even gets to a respectable level of jump shooting, the league's really in some trouble, because he will be the future of the Houston Rockets. And then that Steven Adams trade, that was a sneaky move this year, one that I just did not see coming. I did not expect the Grizzlies to trade Steven Adams at all. The Rockets get him, and I think he's going to have a massive impact on this Rockets team. Think about all of the kind of deficiencies this year for Houston at the backup center spot, whether that was Jeff Green playing small ball center, or if that's Jock Landale kind of just being a bad backup center. Steven Adams solves all of that and more. Steven Adams is a quality starting center, and he will likely be coming off the bench next season. And he's one of the highest volume offensive rebounders. He's one of the best screen setters. So if you want to get more space for Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet and Amen Thompson working off of ball screens, Steven Adams is the perfect center to fill that in. He's super strong. He's super huge. He hits the offensive glass, and defensively, he's no slouch either. He's actually really, really mobile for his size and strength, and he also does a great job boxing out. One of the best box out guys in the league. If you ask me who he's going to have the best synergy with on the team, to me it's Amen Thompson. With Adams' ability to box out other big men and Amen Thompson's ability to sky in for rebounds, those two guys together are going to form a really strong defensive combination because of their ability to close out possessions together. And I think that's going to be huge for Houston, probably coming off the bench to start the next season for both of them. The Rockets are going to be a really dangerous team, and a team that, when you look at their top 8 or 9 players, you're going to say, oh my gosh, who can match up with this team? They just need that top end talent. They just need that 1A star. And the hope is that either one of Cam Whitmore or Amen Thompson can both develop into that, or maybe Alperen Şengün, maybe Jalen Green yet. They've got so many great young prospects. I'm still super high on the future of this team. I think the Rockets are very, very well positioned moving forward. So when we talk about their NBA draft lottery odds and a chance to develop and maybe draft another star, their own pick this year is top 4 protected, but currently owed out to Oklahoma City from the Russell Westbrook-Chris Paul swap a few years ago. However, that pick does have a 7.1% chance to move into the top 4, which would allow Houston to keep the pick and draft someone there in the top 4. But super important note, so if you're a Rockets fan right now, you should be cheering for either Atlanta or Chicago to make the playoffs through the play-in. Now, some of you will be watching this after that's already happened, so this might be a moot point for some of you, but the day that this comes out, this is still a real possibility. Their pick could move up a spot if one of Chicago or Atlanta makes the playoffs, and as a result, their pick would have a 9.4% chance to move up into the top 4. So that's definitely something Rockets fans should be cheering for to happen in the play-in. And then they also own the Brooklyn Nets pick, obviously from the James Harden trade, which is fully unprotected. That pick is currently slated to be pick number 9. So assuming that their own pick does not move up into the top 4, they would be picking likely 9th overall. But that pick also does have a 20.3% chance to move up into the top 4 and a 4.5% chance to become pick number 1, where a player like Alex Sarr would be a really great get for them from a player standpoint and an upside standpoint with what he's kind of projected to be on the defensive end of the floor especially. So when it comes to their NBA draft prospects around pick number 9, there are 4 players that I highlighted here that I think could solve some of Houston's roster deficiency problems. Reed Sheppard from Kentucky is really the one that stands out the most to me. He's a combo guard at heart. He's capable of running an offense at times and running pick and rolls and being an on-ball creator, although that's probably not the heart of his game. The heart of his game is his shooting. And for people who watch the Houston Rockets, you know that this team just needs more shooting. They need more players who are capable of putting the ball in the hoop from a long distance. And I think Reed Sheppard will provide some of that gravity, some of that spacing nuance that the Rockets still need to get better at. That was one of their big flaws this past season. So Reed Sheppard, for me, is the top target for Houston. Although from an upside standpoint, if he somehow falls to pick 9, which I'm not expecting him to, in my most recent mock draft, I had him in the top 4, but I did want to highlight Cody Williams here. from a upside development standpoint, if they're able to get their hands on Cody Williams, he could be a really special get for them with his ability to drive downhill. He's long, he takes pride in the defensive end of the floor, and he's been super efficient in his lone season at Colorado. So Cody Williams to me stands out as a guy who could also be another high upside get for Houston. But then two more guys who just make sense from a fit perspective. Jared McCain from Duke, I think a little bit of a worse version of Reed Sheppard. Not quite as dominant as a shooter, but still very, very good. Ranks in the 90th plus percentile for nearly every single shot type. Really impressive season he had as a freshman at Duke. And then Dalton Knecht, high usage player at Tennessee, but really when he gets to the league, the way that his role is going to scale is he's going to turn into a spot-up transition shooter who provides spacing, moves off the ball well. Tennessee and Rick Barnes used him a ton off of screens, and I think if you look at Houston, again, it's about generating good looks off of the basketball, guys who move well without the rock in their hands. Dalton Knecht, Jared McCain, Reed Sheppard all do that for me at a pretty high level, but I think Sheppard's the best one of the three because I think he's going to be the most competent with the ball in his hands as well at the NBA level. Then, hypothetically, if the Rockets move into the top four, Alex Sarr, we talked about, I think his defensive two-way play could really separate him from others in this draft, especially for Houston and Ime Udoka. The added rim protection Sarr could provide would be very unique there. And then Zachary Rissacher out of JL Borg. His shooting's been a little up and down, especially more down than up lately. But he stands about 6'9", 6'10", and he shoots the ball extremely well. Kind of an MPJ comp for him, not necessarily the best comp. It's kind of a lazy comp, honestly, but it's kind of giving you a rough idea on what type of player he'll be in the league. Otherwise, it would give the Rockets some good trade fodder where they could go out and maybe get something done in the trade market if they wanted to, because they do have some pathways to either opening up money for trades or for free agency. Now, they are projected negative $10.38 million this offseason, so you might be saying, well, how do they get to that salary off the books to have cap space? They've got a bunch of movable salaries. These salaries are either tradable or waivable. They can cut these guys and open up money that way. Jock Landale is at the top of the list. He makes $8 million, non-guaranteed. There's 3 more years left on his contract, fully non-guaranteed. They can literally cut Jock Landale today and he will be completely off of their books moving forward, which I definitely think is a possibility. With the Steven Adams trade, I just don't see the Rockets paying their third center $8 million. So I think Jock Landale has played his final game with the Houston Rockets. This is also tradable. They could trade this contract and another team could either cut him, whatever they want to do. The Rockets could maybe leverage this into taking in some bad contracts and getting some draft pick compensation out of it as well if they wanted to go that way, although I don't expect them to. Jayshawn Tate has a $7 million team option this year that I could see the Rockets either holding on to and keeping or declining. And Jeff Green has a $9.6 million team option as well. Now, I think the Rockets like Jeff Green. I don't think that they want to give him up. But let's say in the hypothetical that they move off of all 3 of these salaries and don't take any money back in, they would free up about $27 million, which would get them up to roughly $16 million in cap space. And they have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which is nearly $13 million this year at $12.859 million to use as well. So you can't combine those two things. It's not like they could go out and sign a player for $28 million, but they could sign a player for $16 million and then sign another player for $12.859 million, which would allow them to replace Landale, Tate, and Green with 2 other players that they could use better. And then they also have a lottery pick to fill in that third roster spot. So if you want to look at them kind of improving their team significantly, it's turning Landale, Tate, and Green into 2 better players and also a lottery pick in this year's draft. So the Rockets have some real flexibility, some real players that could help them. So let's talk about who those free agent possibilities are. In free agency, they've got a couple of guys that I think would make some serious sense for them. First of all, Buddy Hield of the Philadelphia 76ers comes to mind as a player who will probably get offered a lot of mid-level exceptions this offseason. My expectation is he'll probably stay in Philadelphia with the Sixers, given the fact that they traded for him this last trade deadline. And I'm sure that Daryl Morey would like to keep him, although the Rockets could steal him away. And this is where having that $16 million in cap space becomes actually pretty important. Even though it's not a lot, it's not enough for a max contract, it's not enough for a super big name player. Having $16 million gives you $3 million more than what most teams are going to be able to offer with that mid-level exception. So if you're Buddy Hield and you can sign a contract for 3 years, $48 million compared to 3 years, $42 million, you clearly would rather take the $48 million offer, which is what Houston could afford to pay Buddy Hield pretty comfortably. And his shooting, his gravity, his floor spacing, and ability to play off of go screens, I think Hield would be a really natural fit next to Amin Thompson. I also think he would be a good fit around Alperen Şengün as a floor spacer for him. Malik Beasley is probably a little bit of a cheaper option this year. He played on the minimum contract for Milwaukee. He's definitely going to make more than that next year, but he'll be somewhere between the taxpayer mid-level, which is going to be in the $6-7 million range, and that non-taxpayer mid-level, which is going to be in that $12.859 million mark. So for the Rockets, they could get Malik Beasley somewhere, maybe say $8 million, go above that go over that taxpayer mid-level to make sure you try and get him. You could split up your non-tax mid-level to ensure that you get him. Nick Batum's another guy that they could try and target that way by splitting up a non-tax mid-level. Malik Monk's a player who would take that full $16 million. I think he's actually going to get a bigger contract offer this offseason, whether that be from Sacramento or Orlando. Those are the two teams to watch right now, in my opinion, for Malik Monk. Obviously, a dark horse team could emerge as well. Taurean Prince, someone who you could get probably around the taxpayer mid-level or the biannual exception, somewhere between $4 to $6 million is where I would project Taurean Prince to be making next year. And then we have one big name here on this list, and the Rockets would have to figure out a way to open up a little bit more money. It's a weird situation. $16 million is not going to be able to get Klay Thompson, but I do think he would be the best get for Houston this offseason if they found a way to land him. I know Rockets fans probably don't want Klay Thompson. I know they don't like Klay Thompson from the Rockets-Warriors rivalries, but imagine this guy's gravity, this guy's shooting ability. He still is at the top of the league, moving off of screens and scoring off of screens off of the basketball. So if you want to kind of create more offensive continuity, if you want to add more talent to your offensive side of the ball, and if you want to get better offensively with more shooting, more quick fire threes, more kind of creativity on the offensive end of the floor, Klay Thompson I think is the headliner of this list. Now Buddy Hield's a budget version of him, but Klay Thompson's bigger, he's better, and he shoots the ball at an elite clip still, even at this point of his career. I know someone's going to comment, we don't want Klay Thompson, he's washed. Listen, he's still shooting the ball really, really well. He's still an efficient offensive player. And I think with the way that Houston is coached, the size that they have defensively and the athleticism around Klay Thompson, I think defensively he wouldn't even be that bad either in Houston. Obviously, he slipped up a little bit from where he was an all-defense candidate multiple years ago. He's not that same level of player defensively anymore, clearly, but he is still a quality defensive player who is smart with some good size. So I think he's a better player than Buddy Hield for sure. I think he would really enhance the Houston Rockets' off-ball capabilities and still give them a quality wing defender, at least off of either the second unit or in the starting lineup, depending on what Houston wanted to do that way. So when it comes to the outlook for next season, I think this team is going to strongly be in the playoff mix. They were right on the cusp of it this year. Obviously did not end up getting in, unfortunately, for the Rockets, but I think it was a real great building year. I think this team took significant steps forward, and I think for them to take the next step forward, not only will Jalen Green and Alperen Şengün have to work together to kind of improve their two-man play and the way that they work together, but they're both going to take individual steps forward, so I think this team's just naturally going to continue developing and maybe adding a few wins each season. And then Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore are really the X factors here for the Rockets' long-term development and their long-term ceiling. If Cam Whitmore is what I think he is, which is a Jaylen Brown clone, the Rockets have something really real on their hands. And if Amin Thompson is what I think he is, which is a complete unicorn one-of-one player, that no other player like him exists in the NBA at his size, length, athleticism, capability as a playmaker with the ball in his hands as a downhill threat, I just don't think another player like him exists. I know someone's going to say, he has a twin brother, right? Ausar Thompson can't do the things Amin Thompson can do. There's a reason the two of them, when they played together, Amin Thompson had the ball in his hands a ton, Ausar Thompson didn't. There's a reason for that. It's because Amin Thompson is a better player with more capabilities with the ball in his hands. It's not surprising he went first in the draft between the two of them, and I think he's got such an insane ceiling. Amin Thompson and Cam Whitmore, I think they can explode next year. Whitmore probably going to blossom into a 15 to 18 point per game scorer by next season. I don't think that's outrageous. And then Amen Thompson is going to put up multiple triple doubles next year. And I think the Rockets 2 years from now are going to feel comfortable not keeping Fred VanVleet, because there will be a sense that Amen Thompson is their franchise point guard moving forward after Fred VanVleet's first 2 years of his contract are up. I hope you guys did enjoy this offseason preview. It was a ton of fun to record. I love talking about the Houston Rockets. I want you guys to comment #Rockets down below, and I also want you to comment your favorite Rockets player down in the comments section. I want to hear who you guys love cheering for, who you love rooting for on this team. Again, I really appreciate you all for watching. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.